Ole Gunnar Solskjær will have face-to-face talks with Manchester United tomorrow about taking over until the end of the season. Right, let's start with Manchester United then. Ole Gunnar Solskjær and Michael Carrick, as we know, are in the running to take charge of the club until the end of the season. There's been an update in the last 25 minutes. Kave Solokol.
Yeah, Ole Gunnar Solskjær is going to have face-to-face talks with the United hierarchy tomorrow. Michael Carrick has already spoken to the United hierarchy. Now, you would assume that when we're talking about face-to-face talks, it's effectively an interview with people like Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, who are in charge of running the club under Jim Ratcliffe. I've got to be honest with you, Mike. I mean, I can't quite get my head around this because Ole Gunnar Solskjær was sacked by Manchester United.
Paid off, broken man. Now they want him back.
He was sacked by Manchester United just over 4 years ago. I remember his final game, United lost 4-1 against Watford. Previously, they lost to Man City. A few games before that, they lost 5-0 to Liverpool. They were 7th in the Premier League. And they are going potentially back to him. And the other person they've spoken to is Michael Carrick, the person who took over from Ole Gunnar Solskjær as the interim manager 4 years ago. Now, Michael Carrick, brilliant player. Ole Gunnar Solskjær, brilliant player. But you look at their managerial record and you have to ask, what have they done that is going to be an improvement on Ruben Amorim? What have they done? Because Ole Gunnar Solskjær, his last job was at Besiktas. He was sacked in the summer after they were knocked out of the Europa League playoffs, and then they were knocked out of the Europa Conference League playoffs by Lausanne, the Swiss club that's also owned by Ineos. And Michael Carrick, incredible player though he was, you look at his record at Middlesbrough, he failed to win promotion with Middlesbrough. Last season, they finished 10th. He was sacked 3 or 4 weeks after the end of the season when they held a review. So, for the life of me, I cannot understand, even though both these players were exceptional players for Manchester United, what they have done to be in the running to take over as the manager of the club until the end of the season.
All right, Michael, let's talk Ineos then. They've had a number of important decisions to make. Have they got any right?
Maybe Manchester United fans would say parting company with Ruben Amorim, because I think a lot of fans had enough. I kept hearing about formation all the time. I don't hear Oliver Glasner going about formation all the time. But then you'd go back to it and say, well, when Man United wanted Ruben Amorim, I remember Ruben Amorim, we were getting interviews from Sporting Lisbon. He didn't want to join a club midway through the season. He was so reluctant to join a club midway through a season. That's all I heard from Ruben Amorim. When he joined Manchester United, he didn't want to join midway through a season. You don't want to hear that when you're a fan. You want to hear about your own club. You want to say, I'm at Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Not saying I need the start of the season, I need this, I need that. I think the Dan Ashworth situation was a bit of a puzzling one. It was a very high-profile, messy situation with Newcastle United. He didn't stay. You got England talking about Euros bids. There's no Old Trafford. I mean, I'm not saying that's their fault at all, but you look at their stadium plans, the design of it, the funding is in question as well. So there's a lot of issues up in the air, I think.
Have they got? Go on.
The thing about Ineos is, when they came in, they said, we're going to make Manchester United great again. They were very bullish about the fact that they were going to do a better job than the Glazers of running Manchester United.
Well, let me ask you that question. Were United in a better position when the Glazers were in charge of football operations?
Just going by facts, not my opinion, you have to say yes. Because under the Glazers, Manchester United won the title. Okay, Sir Alex Ferguson was the manager. They won the European Cup. They won FA Cup, League Cup. The Glazers, much maligned as they are, have a track record of sporting success. They've won 2 Super Bowls with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not very easy to win a Super Bowl, especially with the Buccaneers. What have Ineos won? What is their sporting pedigree? They came in and said, we're going to do a better job than the Glazers. We know best. We're going to sort this out. Now, to be fair to Jim Ratcliffe, he's put some of his own money into the club. But you listen to what United fans are saying, and they're saying it's been one wrong decision after another. Giving Erik ten Hag a new contract, then sacking him. Pursuing Dan Ashworth, paying to get him from Newcastle United, then sacking him. Appointing Ruben Amorim, who Dan Ashworth didn't want, when Ruben Amorim wanted to wait until the end of the season to join, when they knew he played three at the back, then falling out with Ruben Amorim and going back to Ole Gunnar Solskjær, somebody who was sacked by the much maligned Ed Woodward. Now, I'm not here to defend the Glazer family. Ever since they bought Manchester United, when I was a newspaper journalist, I have been critical of their ownership model and what they've done to Manchester United. But if you look at the facts, where United finished under the Glazers and what they won, under the Glazers, United never finished 15th.
Have Ineos got a plan for Manchester United?
Well, I think if you've got a director of football like Jason Wilcox, one of your jobs is to have a contingency plan in case the manager leaves. So where is the contingency plan? Amorim's left. Where's the contingency plan? Chelsea had a contingency plan. I'm not sure it's the right contingency plan, but Maresca left, and very, very quickly they knew immediately, even before Maresca had gone probably, that Liam Rosenior was going to take over. What has been United's contingency plan? What have they been doing behind the scenes? Was the contingency plan all along, if we lose a manager, we're going to take a few days and speak to Michael Carrick and speak to Ole Gunnar Solskjær and give it to them until the end of the season? Because most people would say that's not a particularly good contingency plan.
So are they going to spend any money in this window, given this managerial turmoil?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that was one of the issues, that was one of the disagreements with Ruben Amorim. He felt that United needed to make a couple of signings this January, an experienced number 9, perhaps another midfielder. Perhaps he was happy for Kobbie Mainoo to leave the club as well. But I think the new person coming in, whether it's Darren Fletcher, Ole Gunnar Solskjær, Michael Carrick, it's not a case as an interim where you're going to be saying, I want money to spend in January. No, your job is just to get on with the job with the players already at the club and make sure they finish in the top 5. Because I think top 5 will get you in the Champions League. And I think United have got the players to finish in the top 5, especially once the African Cup of Nations is over.
So,
Spent big money in the summer. Benjamin
gave Amorim a load of money and then sacked him.
Mateus Cunha, that's a lot of money. Brian Mbeumo, that's a lot of money. I mean, Šeško's showing glimpses now, isn't he? And Mbeumo's doing all right. He's on AFCON at the moment. Don't know. I mean, on the pitch, he's not looking too bad. He's left the club not in a terrible position, is he? Really? They could qualify for the Champions League. Manchester United without Europe is unthinkable. We've got 9 English sides in Europe, and Man United aren't one of them. Wow.
And they're bringing in Ole Gunnar Solskjær, so perhaps they might be anyway. So Ole at the wheel, or are the wheels coming off? Well, as United's search for a manager goes on, Darren Fletcher will take charge for the season for the second time when they welcome Brighton to Old Trafford in the FA Cup on Sunday. Now, Carve mentioned Kobbie Mainoo. He's in line for just a second start of the campaign after falling out of favour under Amorim, and so much so that he asked to leave the club on loan in the summer.
He seems in a good place. Kobbie doesn't give you much, so you wouldn't know if he was in a good place or not so good. He's like that. That's his natural way. But I know him well, and I've known him for a long time. And I've seen him around the building and around different places throughout the season. Not so much about the building, but you see people around. And I've had conversations with him in general. But he's in a good place. I know Kobbie, and I think he knows me, and he knows Travis Binion, so he's comfortable with his environment. So he's in a good place. He's trained well, and as I said, he's hard to read, Kobbie. So that remains to be seen.
He's in a good place, he says, but then he says he's hard to read. What do you think about Mainoo's future, given the fact that Amorim has now gone?
Well, I'd expect him to stay at Manchester United. Darren Fletcher does know him well because he's known him over the years at Manchester United. But look, this is a player who was selected for the Euros by Gareth Southgate. Is he going to be selected by Thomas Tuchel? It looks like it's unlikely, but look, you can't see him leaving now with what's going on with Manchester United now. He's obviously been given a lifeline, and it looks like the fans want him back as well.
What do you think, Carve? Do you see him staying, or do you think his bridges have been burned?
I think he will definitely stay. He's a brilliant player. He was in the starting 11 for England at the last Euros. For whatever reason, Ruben Amorim didn't rate him as highly as other people have rated him. Basically, he said to him, "You're going to be Bruno Fernandes's understudy," and that is not a good place to be if you're Kobbie Mainoo. So I think clean slate for him, and I would expect him to have a really big next 5 months, because I still think there's a chance he could get into the England squad if he wins his place back in the United team.
Okay.
How concerned are you about his future, Manchester United? By the way, there's no talk that Manchester United are in for him. This is just Roy Keane. It would be his first choice. And a lot of Manchester United fans are getting in touch with us saying that he would be their first choice as well. And all season we've been talking about England in the summer. Do you think you've got him long term?
Well, I'm not sure if we've got him long term, but I'm certainly not concerned about him going to Manchester United. I think by my count, including interim managers, I think Manchester United have had 5 managers since Eddie Howe has been at Newcastle. He's a manager who wants stability, he wants control. He actually wants to maybe be a little bit more like a throwback manager to a Ferguson or a Wenger. That's the reason where there's maybe been a little bit of friction between sporting directors and Eddie Howe over the last couple of years, because he wants to be involved in scouting and player development, academy development. And at Manchester United, it just seems to be a real toxic place now, whether you're an experienced manager with trophies in your cabinet in the shape of Van Gaal or Mourinho, whether you're a young manager coming through in the shape of Amorim, that job seems to chew you up and spit you out. And I think Manchester United still live in this kind of mindset that they're the Manchester United that I sadly grew up hating, winning everything, and they're not that team anymore. They're miles away from that. But they're ex-players like Roy Keane and alike, and brilliant players with unbelievable pedigree in the game. They still sometimes forget that Manchester United have slipped down that pecking order in terms of appeal. If Eddie Howe was going to leave Newcastle for another club, if it would maybe be, I don't know, a Chelsea or an Arsenal or even a club abroad. But I think England is probably the one that would concern me about Howe, because I think he's tailor-made for the England job, and I think it's the kind of manager that probably the FA would like, depending on what happens with Thomas Tuchel in the World Cup potentially. But concerned, I think the issue is that the life of a manager is short term. I think Eddie Howe has probably served longer than most managers, which is a real sad indictment of the state of modern day management. But I think I'd be more worried about him going to England than I would Manchester United, because I just think they are absolutely miles off it. And whoever goes in there next will probably get chewed up and spat out a year later.
How do the club match Eddie Howe's ambitions? He does seem an ambitious manager.
Yeah, he is an ambitious manager. I mean, I think they're always going to struggle with the PSR and the FFP regulations until we get to that point where the commercial revenue is enhanced. The stadium's obviously a huge kind of white elephant in the room for us, because we've got the fans wanting to attend. We've got the ground at full capacity. We can't sell any more tickets. You've got the corporate kind of sponsorship there too. And whether people like it or not, that's a modern day requirement of being one of those clubs. You have to have that money coming in to add to the revenue, and then that can give Eddie Howe more money in the transfer market to play with. But the club have backed him quite well. I mean, he had over 200 million in the summer. Granted, he lost arguably his best player, and that was maybe a little bit mismanaged behind the scenes as well. But I don't blame Eddie Howe for that one. I think he was kind of, if anything, he came out of that looking an even better manager, because that was a really difficult situation to handle as a manager, which makes him appeal to a lot of people like Roy Keane, I suppose. But they just got to keep backing him in the transfer market as best they can within the financial restraints that they're operating under, I think.
Okay, Chris, thank you.
Hi, Darren.
Hi.
First of all, just team news, what the situation is. And with Mazraoui and Burmo, could one of them potentially feature this weekend, or would you give some time off?
I don't think so. I think it's too close a turnaround, so we'll have the same players available for the game as we had against Burnley, so no new additions. And Brian and Noose will be not available for the game.
Grimsby was the low point of the season in the Carabao Cup. This is a club synonymous with cup success. So how important is it to have an FA Cup run and this competition?
That's an important competition, and Manchester United's about winning trophies, and I think we've had good success in the competition in recent years. Won it a couple of years ago, lost in the final. It's an amazing competition. It's the first trophy that I won as a player. It's a special tournament, and you know, as in with the season so far, not in Europe, out of the League Cup, it's Premier League obviously, but it's the FA Cup's a trophy that we should be vying to win and giving ourselves every opportunity to win.
Thanks, George. Afternoon, Darren. You've been really open about some of the conversations you've had with different players so far this week. Just wonder if you've had a chance to speak to Cobby, just because there's been so much speculation around his future because of lack of game time. But overall, how is he? How has he been doing?
He seems in a good place. Cobby doesn't give you much, so you wouldn't know if he was in a good place or not so good. He's like that. That's his natural way. But I know him well, and I've known him for a long time, and I've seen him around the building and around different places throughout the season. Not so much about the building, but you see people around, and I've had conversations with him in general. But he's in a good place. I know Cobby, and I think he knows me, and he knows Travis Binion, so he's comfortable with his environment. So he's in a good place. He's trained well, and as I said, he's hard to read, Cobby. So that remains to be seen.
Darren, Harry Maguire, I think most people are a little bit surprised that he was on the bench on Wednesday night. Is he in a position where he could start, or what's his fitness? Because he's obviously been out for a while.
Well, he has been out for a while, so it'd be probably looking at his load and things like that. That decision's not been made, but I think like you've seen the players coming back the other night, you've seen Mason, you've seen Cobby, you've seen Bruno, there has to be some understanding of their first minutes. Might have to be careful a little bit with that process to build back in, so I think Harry will probably be in that situation for the weekend.
Hi, Darren. We saw the impact Shea made off the bench the other day. I don't know whether you're going to start in this weekend or what, I'm not going to ask about that, but in terms of the academy, that's what young players can do. It felt like it was kind of an issue maybe towards the end of Ruben's time. Obviously there was the mention of Cheeto and Harry and the entitled mention in his press conference. You've seen a lot of them with the under-18s and working in the academy. What's your view of how the academy is working here and how players are developing, I guess, in terms of ability and character and attitude and things like that?
I just think historically, and this club's built around the academy. We've got an amazing academy. Our record speaks for itself. I'm not going to stand here and say anything other than that. We've got an amazing record. I think it's hard to beat in terms of the history of clubs around the world. I think we've got some amazing players, some amazing talents. I think what I see is a lot of hard working, humble young players who ain't perfect because they're young and they're learning and have got a lot to do. I think we ask and expect too much of young people sometimes in society and in general, and that's not a criticism of anybody, that's just my beliefs. I think we have to let them learn, educate them, help them, understand they're going to make mistakes and they're going to do things that will frustrate you, but through time with good guidance of coaches, family members, players in the first team squad, all of us play a part. That's our role, that's our jobs of developing them to be Manchester United players and Manchester United people. So all I can say is my workings with those players as individuals and in general throughout the academy, I deal with hard-working, honest, coachable, super talented kids, and we've got a lot of talent in our academy, and hopefully they can showcase themselves like Shea did when he came on against Burnley and so close to scoring a fantastic goal.
Well, Darren, you were speaking on Wednesday night after the match about the fact that you're learning about the confidence levels of the players, particularly when it came to not holding on to that lead. What have you done this week to try and sort of restore that confidence? What techniques have you used? Is it meetings? Is it showing them videos of the past, or how have you tried to do that?
Yeah, it's just feedback. It's just talking to them. It's just trying to paint the picture of what to expect, not to deal with this, how to deal with disappointments in games, how to see out different situations in games. It's been not a lot of time to practice it. So video, we'll review the game against Burnley, and there's some key details in that we'll try and improve on. I think it's a constant thing that evolves over time for me. It's conversations, it's video, it's coaching on the training ground, it's dealing with learning from new experiences that happened within game and growing and building as a team and developing confidence and going on a run where you deal with those situations. But handling disappointment in football is everything, on and off the pitch, different situations in the game, and it's recognising and understanding that you've got 90 minutes to rectify things and nothing's going to be perfect. I think people striving for perfection, football's about chance, luck, opportunities, different things happen. Look at the game the other night. I mean, we conceded one shot on goal, another shot off target, and we draw 2-2, but that's football. We have a disallowed goal, which is unfortunate. Things happen in football, you've got to be able to deal with them constantly and just keep believing, well, there's 90 minutes on the clock, that you can change it around.
James.
Darren, just going back to the Burnley game, there was an incident that was missed by the referee in the VAR where Kyle Walker stamped on Patrick Dorgu. One, can I ask your reaction to that incident? And two, Patrick probably admirably didn't react, but we're in a situation where the players are actually feeling they maybe need to react to get the referee and the VAR's attention, because had he milked that moment or rolled around, he probably would have ended up getting Kyle Walker would have probably ended up being sent off.
So like Kyle Walker did when Leitcher didn't touch him, yeah. That's sort of the territory we're getting into just now. But Patrick's such an honest guy; he's never going to do that. It didn't look great from Kyle Walker's point of view, but I like Kyle and I know him as a person, so I hope the intent was to get the ball. Patrick thought that his intention at the time was Kyle tried to get the ball and made contact with him, so that was his understanding of the incident in the moment. For me personally, I think VAR should have looked at. They looked at the goal disallowed, which was ridiculous, so they should have been looking at that for me. And as you say, if they don't, they're just going to encourage players making massive dramas out of things and being theatrical, which is what we don't want in the game. I don't want that from my players. I'd strive my players not to do it. But them two situations probably were massive influences on the game the other night, so it shows you how influential it can be.
Catherine?
I was just wondering if you've had the chance to speak to Sir Jim Ratcliffe this week, any conversations with him just about the vision of the club and also your own future?
I've not, no, and again the process here works. I speak to Omar and Jason. That's how the processes work. For me, I've been focusing on the job in hand, preparing the team for these two games. There's been no thoughts or conversations about my future. Honestly, the people in Jason and Omar have given me full responsibility to take control of these two games, make my own decisions, lead the team, guide the team, prepare the team, and that's what I've been doing. There's been no conversations with anybody outside of those two people in higher up positions in the club.